So wills have been around for a long time. The idea is you basically write out what you want done with your stuff when you die, where you want it distributed, and you also say who you want to manage your stuff when you die. That's called the executor. And then the court system oversees this whole process. They oversee the distribution and they appoint the executor and they're watching over everything. But one problem with this is that over time, courts have become quite overloaded and burdened. So this can take a really long time. Another problem is that everything filed with the court is of public record. Anyone can look it up. So anyone can find out that you left that diamond ring to Lucy, or maybe you have a house that's now vacant after you died. Most people want to keep that type of information private. So in the late 70s and early 80s, this concept of a revocable living trust became more popular. These trusts do what wills used to do. They spell out who's going to receive all the assets, how they're going to get them, and also who's going to manage things. And in a trust, the manager of the trust is the trustee. But because it's held in the trust structure, it doesn't need court supervision. So this saves time and money and it protects your privacy. So you might be thinking, okay, Ellen, we don't need wills anymore. Great, no more wills, but not so fast. Trusts only work when assets are actually held in the trust, when they're titled in the trust, or when they flow into the trust upon your death. If an asset doesn't belong in the trust, then the trust doesn't apply to it. That means that an asset must be titled in the trust for the terms of the trust to apply. So maybe, for example, you'd have a house owned by John and Jane Smith, and the grant deed would say that the house is titled in the name of John and Jane Smith, trustees of the John and Jane Smith Family Trust. That's how a house would be held in the trust. I mean, compare that to if it's just John and Jane Smith as husband and wife as community property, or John and Jane Smith in joint tenancy. In those cases, it wouldn't be held in the trust. So what if somebody sets up a trust, but they don't actually retitle their assets in the trust? Their house is still in the name of John and Jane Smith, husband and wife as community property. How do we get that into the trust? Well, if John and Jane Smith are still alive, they can do a trust deed to transfer the asset into the trust. But if they're not alive, that's when a will can be important. A will can be used as a cleanup document. The will can say, if I forgot to put something into the John and Jane Smith Family Trust, I want the will to be used to scoop up that asset and pour it over into the trust. That's why we call this type of will a pour over will. So when estate planners are drafting a revocable living trust, they just about always also draft a pour over will that accompanies the trust. So this will can be used to put things in the trust if somebody forgot to. There are some other roles that an executor plays. For example, an executor still needs to file the Form 706, the estate tax return, if one of them is due. Now, you can also put other details in a pour-over will. For example, if you have minor children, you can say in your will who you're going to nominate as the guardian of your minor children. And the reason why you might put that in your will is because that has to go through court. If you're nominating somebody to be guardian of your child, whenever we're dealing with a minor person or a person without capacity, or who's somebody who's disabled, we want the court to oversee that process. So you can put that in your will, or you can also do a nomination of a guardian as a separate document.
Hey everyone, if you like my mom's video, like and subscribe.
Okay, so at this point you might be thinking, well, hold on, Ellen. I have a will, but not a trust in California. Are you telling me that everything's going to go through probate when I die? Yes, that's exactly what I'm telling you. A will does not avoid the court system. It just says where you want your assets to go and who you want to oversee the administration. But the court system is still required. What a bummer. So the moral of the story, yes, you do want a revocable living trust. Now, what if somebody dies and they don't have a will or a trust? Well, in that case, their assets go through what we call intestate succession. So intestate means without the testate, which is the will. So without a will. And it's a similar process to what you go through with a will, but not a trust. It still goes through probate, but we don't know where things are to go upon your death, and we don't know who's going to manage it. So somebody has to step up and offer to be the probate administrator, and things pass according to the probate code. Okay, so the probate code actually spells out if you have children or parents who are still alive or siblings or nieces and nephews, there's an order to where things go and how much goes to each person. So it's a fallacy that if you don't have a will or a trust, everything goes to the state. That's not true. But you do have to follow the state rules of where things go to, and you may not like that. So you might want to write it out instead. And I also suggest that you check out my video, 10 Reasons Why I Hate Probate. Because if this hasn't convinced you yet, you can find out 9 other reasons in that video why you don't want to go through probate. Now, please keep in mind that estate planning rules are different in every state. So I understand there are states that are more probate court friendly to use. For example, I've heard that in Texas, you can be appointed as a probate administrator in a day, whereas in California, it takes like 3 months to get appointed. Now, sometimes people ask me, where should I store a will? Once I've signed the will, where should I keep it? Well, you should keep it in a safe place. And where might that be? Perhaps with your important papers, along with your other estate planning documents. Maybe it'll be on a bookshelf or in a file cabinet. Now, if you have a safe deposit box, you want to make sure that your executor or your successor trustee can access that safe deposit box. So you give them a key or you sign something allowing them to access it. I don't think we really need safe deposit boxes now, but if you're really concerned about a house fire or something, then perhaps you would get one. Now, when you die, the next person in line, the custodian of the will, whoever has the will, is required to lodge that will with the county. So, and it costs about $50, all right? Well, right now in 2024. So they're required to send in the original will and have it lodged, and then they get a receipt back, the cover page of the will with a little stamp received. So we do that during the trust administration process. There are no other documents that are required to be submitted to the court. It's just the probate code specifies that wills have to be submitted upon somebody's death. So hopefully that clarified some of your questions about wills. Now, if you want to learn more about how wills and trusts interact, I recommend that you watch my video, What Happens If I Don't Fund My Trust? And I'll see you over there.
Hello everyone. If you liked my mom's video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you all next time.